Okay, guys, welcome back. This is the end of the world with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I am Stu, and today we are talking about an incredibly powerful, beautiful
Yeah.
movie about
Moving.
about love, its vicissitudes. Uh,
Alienation.
what if Siri was my girlfriend? Is
Yeah.
something I'm playing around with for title of this episode. Now that we've moved into more avant-garde titling format. I don't know if any listeners
Yeah.
have noticed. We've moved away from just,
Oh.
Frankenstein.
T-
We're
10s to 13s have caught on to this development,
yeah,
too.
yeah. Totally. We have our fourth iTunes or Apple Pod review I noticed recently. Trying to figure out how many
Good or
of them
bad?
all good. I'm trying to figure out how
Hmm.
many of them were written by our relatives. I know at least one.
Right.
Was very much so. But two others I can't identify, and then there's a third one where I have a suspicion it might be one of my relatives. But
Well, one is always suspicious in the early days of a podcast.
yeah,
Right.
I
But
think,
it's nice to any friends and family out there who haven't
yeah,
written a
like
review
really,
or subscribed. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
both of our
We need
birthdays
this
were in the
desperately.
last month, and
Yeah, I guess we should have we should have done that. Like we should have done like that cringe ask on the posts. Like, all I want for my birthday is a follow and a review.
wow, that would
But
have
then
been
that would have been like traumatic when nobody did it anyway.
yeah.
You know,
That's also just like a new low even for us,
it's
right?
it's a true low. Yeah. So what
Uh,
is the actual name of the movie?
Oh,
Stu?
Her is the movie. 2013's Her,
Yeah.
directed by Spike Jonze and written also by Spike Jonze, which is,
Ooh.
I think, one of the problems with the movie, which we'll get into shortly. Yeah, before we do that, I mean, I guess we did kind of just remind everyone that they should subscribe, tell a friend about the pod. Um,
Mhm.
I think last week we were joking about friend of the pod, best friend of the pod, really, Jerry Seinfeld, and how it's been.
Yep.
You were amazed to learn the Pop Darts movie was not only in production; it was actually already out in the world.
Yeah, and I guess he went to Duke.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention.
To plug it. He went to Duke to give a
We got
keynote address
he
to
was given
plug the Pop-Tart movie.
Michael,
What kind of
excuse me.
hell are we
Jerry
in?
Seinfeld was given an honorary doctorate. I'm sure of like humane letters or some ridiculous
Yeah.
non-real thing.
Sure.
Yeah, a divisive appearance. Divisive? I don't know what you prefer. Many grads walked out during his speech.
Yeah, and it was related to the ongoing protests of Palestine, right?
I should imagine so.
I,
Right?
I I would like to think there was just like one dude who was like not related to it, but saw that it was Jerry and was just like, "Fuck this! I'm so sick of this asshole."
That would be good.
he's he's just so fucking boring now. It's like,
Other people
I
have
mean,
remarked on this, but I think it's very funny that the guy who became famous for his comedy about the most mundane stuff in the world
mhm.
has finally been forced into this weirdly like political position. And recently he's been going on pods and stuff and saying stuff like, yeah, like wokeness killed comedy. And it's like, oh really, Jerry? Like you can't like
Right.
tell jokes
You can't talk about airplane peanuts anymore. Like when was this man ever pushed? Was he getting blowback when he was putting in his third draft of the B movie?
Yeah,
Like I just don't understand how he even associates himself with the idea of the fake thing that isn't happening. Right?
yeah.
Like that's what's so confusing.
It's pathetic. He's a loser, and
I mean, just like, and like if you have any awareness at all, like your your colleague, your former partner has been putting out a show that's doing exactly what you're talking about for 2 decades. I don't know. The whole thing was just so.
I saw a tweet that was like, at this point, it's pretty clear that if Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld are our generation's Simon and Garfunkel, Jerry is Garfunkel.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's also
I
like
took offense at. As a huge Garfunkel
outside
fan.
outside theory not being floated in a lot from what I'd see. But what if all of this is just a distraction from him being at all like nailed down or having to explain his, I'm assuming, somewhat questionable politics when it comes to Israel Palestine?
Oh no, yeah, it's clearly a deflectionary gesture.
Right? He's trying to push his Pop-Tart movie, and that this is the strategy is to like Be like, there's no room for edgelords anymore. Please come see my corporate sponsored movie called Pop Tarts or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah, and I mean, people also, have questioned some of his dating choices from earlier in his career, as you may recall. But no
Yeah.
need to get into that. I still can't believe that I actually sat in a room and watched Jerry do stand up. Coming to one of your shows, unannounced appearance
Yes.
by
I famously followed him
yeah, it was great, great.
because
Well,
he came
you
to
didn't follow him.
broadcast the material.
You didn't just follow his set, which was 40 minutes plus. You followed the Q&A that he then did after his
Yes.
set, which is a
The
great.
man did a Q&A. He asked to do some material at a show that I was on that my friend was headlining at the beginning of his tour. Great comedian, Dan Lamore. And Jerry Seinfeld did his typical thing. He was like, "Can I come by?" And you obviously say yes because it's fucking Jerry Seinfeld. And so he's supposed to do whatever, 10, 20 minutes.
It does 40 at least.
After Gaffigan also showed up.
Oh,
His buddy
right.
Gaffigan actually
Gaffigan
opened
was
the show.
right.
It was the best $15 anybody's ever spent in comedy until I got on the stage. And like Seinfeld rips 40 minutes. The manager says to me, like, "Oh wow, maybe he's working on a new special. He doesn't usually do this long. Do you mind only doing 10?" I'm like, "Do I mind only doing 10? I'm fine with 30 seconds. I'm going to be following a standing ovation from Jerry Seinfeld." But like, amazingly, if you remember, the one of the questions, this was a long time ago, 2019.
Yeah, 5 years
He
ago.
was asked by someone because he had the ego to do a Q&A after opening a show that he hopped on the day of.
Yeah.
He did a 30-minute Q&A that included a question about how he said comedians can't go to college campuses anymore.
Right.
They're too sensitive. This was in 19, which is interesting. Now we've
He's been on
come
this
sort of
beat
full
for
circle.
a little while.
He's been
But
on
now
this beat.
now
Yeah,
he's at
really,
Duke. He's gone to it.
yeah, I'm telling you for the last time type deal, right? And it's like he does this and he kind of like gives the rather standard like anti-PC remark,
Yeah.
right? And then I didn't know what to do, so I just ended up going up and being like, "I don't know why Americans are so scared that free speech, like this is like I'm Canadian. This is the only country where it seems like everyone's so petrified, as though no one else in any place in the world is, speaking ever." Um, but it was great. It was a great experience. We were told not to make eye contact with him,
That
which
was
was
good.
fun.
I love that
Uh,
PA note. Like
I love
when
that.
you give
Yeah,
Jude Law his coffee, you are not to like look him in the eye or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, little aside there, but it's trying to keep us involved in current events. Also, just trying
And
to
so and Jerry seems to be trying to keep himself involved too. So Godspeed to him.
mission accomplished. He's done it again.
Let's talk about another train wreck then, shall
Yeah,
we?
that's I think partly I'm just avoiding trying to get into this. So we're watching her. I don't think I ever actually saw this all the way through when it first came out.
I did.
In watching it, I was like, wait, did I ever watch this? You've now seen it twice. Uh, so Spike Jonze, a good director. He did two movies in the early 2000s that were huge memes, shall we say, or late 90s, early 2000s. Being John Malkovich, right?
Sure.
Good movie, very weird, very
Yeah,
edgy. And then, of course, also, but written by Charlie Kaufman, right? And then
that helped. That
also,
helps. Yeah.
also written by Kaufman, he did Adaptation, a movie I genuinely love that I think is very funny.
Right.
Also,
I guess he did those and was like, "Wow, this ain't so hard." So he
well, he
stepped out on
also
his
did
own
Where
with
the
her.
Wild Things Are, I guess, in 2008
Right.
or 9.
Not quite the same
I
project.
haven't seen that, believe it or not. And then this is the first movie. This came out in 2013. It's the first movie that he wrote and directed, and therein I think lies the difficulty. So, just a little background. So it was a big meme at the time, right? This movie. It was like, can you believe it? It's a movie about a guy who falls in love with
Yeah.
Siri, essentially, right? Siri came out in 2011. Um, I have to believe that played some role in the genesis of this, right? Like,
Yeah, I think so. I remember at the time, I remember watching it when it came out, and it was one of those where it was just clearly getting too much praise that it was almost awkward to, get pigeonholed again as like the hater, unsentimental, hypercritical, but like I remember being out of this movie so quickly.
I mean, I was so out
Um,
on it, I didn't even bother to go in. I was just like, no,
sure.
that's not for me. And
But
I'm
I think
literally
I
someone
would
who
challenge anybody. I would challenge anybody who came down in favor of this movie when it first came out to revisit it, what, 11 years later, and tell me that there's anything to this garbage.
it's horrible. It's
Yeah.
completely horrible. Um, sorry,
Why don't we give
just a little
people
background on the
the
movies.
brilliant background and setup?
So the
Yeah.
main character, played by Joaquin Phoenix, is Theodore Twombly. We were talking a little
Mhm.
beforehand about the name. Twombly, Cy Twombly,
Cy
famous
Twombly.
abstract painter.
Hmm.
Not seeing a lot of connective tissue here between.
No, I also don't need I don't need the Theodore. I don't need the name.
Yeah, it's a little
It's a little
cute,
much.
a little cutesy or something, right?
Yeah, it just sounds like he was named so that it would sound like a certain way when ScarJo sang it as the OS. I don't know.
Maybe
It was confusing.
Theodore
But
means
he
gift of God, I think.
Theodore
Yeah.
occupies, I think, some sort of middle ground between an incel and a volcel, when we come
Well,
to
not
him.
exactly. I think an incel is someone who's never had a relationship. So
No, just they could have one and then become an incel.
I don't
You
think
can
so.
become an
No, no, no,
invol if you
no, no,
what do
no.
you mean?
You cannot. No,
You're saying
incels
you're
are
telling me once you've had sex, you can no longer be an
you'll be
incel?
shunned from the incel community. Yes. You haven't done much research on this, have you?
Well, but
How many
I
times
mean,
have you
I've
watched
done no
5 hour
research on it, but like
documentaries about
you
Elliot Rodger?
if I didn't have sex for a year, that would be a period of celibacy,
Yeah, but
right? And you could
it's not the same. Incel is like a whole identity group. It's like a 4chan Reddit like freak fest. Like these are the worst
okay,
people.
wait though. Let's just clear this up. So can
You
I be
can
a
be
volcel?
physically involuntarily celibate, but you're not an
Yes.
incel in the same way.
You're
An
not
incel
spiritually an incel.
No, an incel is someone who's never had sex. And then when someone who's an
Really?
incel
I thought
has
that
sex,
was a virgin.
Michael, when an no, that is also a virgin, but a virgin could also just be someone who hasn't, because a Christian is waiting for marriage or whatever.
Sure.
No, an incel. This happens a lot when incels, finally do have sex, for instance, and they go back to the incel forum, like, great news, guys. You'll never guess what
Yeah.
happened to me. I met a girl, we had sex, yada yada. They're immediately shunned from the community.
What?
Yeah, dude, you gotta spend more
That's
time reading about like
unbelievable.
internet subcultures. Like you've got to waste more of your
It
mental
sounds like
energy.
it, yeah.
I'm afraid that I've literally watched so many documentaries and read so many books about these, not books, but like, listened to so many pods, read a fair number of articles about it. Yeah, it's anyway, he's not an incel. This has nothing to do with being an incel. He's like in his 30s. He's divorced or he's getting divorced. He had a childhood girlfriend whom he married, and they have grown apart over time. She's played by Rooney Mara. Her name is Catherine. We see her several times in flashbacks. There is one scene where they actually get together to sign the divorce papers. And other than that, he works for something called beautifulhandwrittenletters.com,
Oh God.
which
That's
is,
yeah.
like, what basically people pay him to write letters to their loved ones because they can't do it. They're bad writers.
But the letters are all like written at the same level as like a longer Hallmark card. It's like they're not actually that interesting.
Well, the ones that we see certainly don't seem to be. Although
No, they
there's
say
one,
every single generic thing you could possibly say about
yeah, yeah,
love or graduation or whatever.
yeah, yeah. And there's a kid who's at boarding school whose parents pay Theodore to write letters to him,
Hmm. Hmm.
and he's like, "Oh yeah, John got into med school or whatever. That's good. I've been writing letters to him since he was 12 or something."
Right. So is the idea that, I mean, this takes place in a near future.
That's right.
Is the idea that people have become so disconnected with their emotions and their family that this outsourcing would then become a possibility? Is that the idea? Or like why did this sort of business take off
I have
to the
no
point where
idea.
they have
I
this
mean,
beautiful office. He's seemingly very well paid for what is just a copywriting position that I can't imagine would be difficult to fill.
no, and furthermore, um, if the level of sophisticated AI that this movie demonstrates existed, this
Great
would
point.
literally be the first job that would be replaced by,
The very
someone,
first job. That's
right?
right.
Oh, you mean
Right.
that, like, totally, like, Chat GPT right now can effectively, given what you've said, like, his letters are
Mhm.
not specifically insightful. You could, like, feed in a prompt, like, write a letter to my aunt, that mentions this, 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 and this,
Right.
and that is like affectionate but not overly so.
Yeah, like at the very least, he would be cleaning up the output of maybe more rudimentary AI. He'd be, there'd be one guy
There'd be
that maybe
some
does
kind of
quality
AI
control,
integration in a
which is
world.
interesting because it like the writer and the movie is claiming to sort of like be considering the implications of AI, but the role of it on this guy's exact job is just totally
Well,
blinders.
I think the rollout of it, aside from its potential use as like romance, is
Hmm.
very much ignored. I mean, yeah, it can do it like reads his emails for him.
Hmm.
But otherwise we don't get any like really deep, like we don't
Yeah, I
actually.
wonder if I would find it a little more interesting if it was like a play. I don't know. If it was if it was like explicitly contained
If it
somehow
was it
in
was beautifully handwritten movie, if you will. Well, I think like the idea here that they're working with is this guy writes these allegedly beautiful, though we see no evidence of this, letters to other people that aren't related
Mm,
to him. He's distanced from them. He can be emotional, but only when he's doing it as like an amanuensis, right? He's somebody's
of
like
course.
secretary, essentially,
Yeah.
who like he's like Alfred, and he's
Hmm.
helping raise Bruce Wayne. Except in this world, Bruce Wayne's parents are dead. They're just like at a ski resort and can't be bothered or whatever, right? Like he has this like surrogate. He's this like surrogate emotion haver for all these people who pay him generously. Um, so obviously, one of the things we're dealing with here is like the nature of like Theodore's relationship to other people, right?
Hmm.
And he's got this vexed relationship with his ex, where he has they were together for a long time. They grew up together. He says that several times, which I find very weird. Like, you'll always be a part of me. We grew up together. It's like a weird thing to say about your like ex-wife, right? Like to like keep coming back to the fact that you like knew each other as kids or something. Like
Right.
that if I was like, even when I think of like my best friends that I'm estranged from growing up or whatever, or who've died or whatever, I'm not like, well, we grew up together. That's like that doesn't, it's like we did that thing together, or like we were on the team together, or so. There's like all
Yeah,
these other like.
that's
It
right.
just feels like this weird like thing because he says it several times. Um, the movie, by the way, is scored by the profoundly canceled Arcade Fire,
It certainly is.
along with some assistance from sometime Arcade Fire collaborator and Stu acquaintance Owen Pallett. Um, yeah, yeah, that's right. I'm deeply connected to the world of orchestral pop. For those who
Good.
care.
One of us has to be,
Well,
so
no,
that
the
works out
parts
well.
where Owen Pallett wrote it are very obvious because you're like, wow, this music is like sophisticated and good. Oh. Anyway,
All right,
this
yeah.
world is deeply mediated, right? Like even before he gets this
Yeah.
AI that he
It's
falls in love with,
it's
he's
deeply mediated, but uninterestingly so. It's just sort of to paint the basic picture that you are in like a high production value Black Mirror episode,
that's
you
right.
know?
And they live in Los Angeles, but the exterior shots were filmed in Shanghai. So like
Yes,
those
love that.
those beautiful weird skyscrapers that seem futuristic are just like contemporary 2013 Chinese skyscrapers. It's like, whoa, this weird future. Something like potentially Orientalist about that.
Hmm.
Spike Jonze is canceled, and so very quickly he just like hears an ad for this new AI. They refer to the
Yeah.
AIs as OSs. It's a new operating system, which I found a bit confusing because I don't know. When I think of an operating system, I think of like Windows, Mac
Well, I mean,
OS.
the naming suggests that like the whole process that unfolded to even get to this point didn't take place. Like, I don't know why it would just be called OS. I still can't quite figure that out. Why they wouldn't. I mean, Siri is a good example. Why
Yeah,
wouldn't they just
Siri,
name it something?
Siri. Well, we find out that she has a name, but Siri, Alexa, right? All of these products.
Hmm.
What's the Google? There's a Google one too. Even Bank of America has Erica. Like they all have.
Yeah,
Like every
thank
company
God.
has one of these, and they're so wonderful that.
Right.
Have you ever had a friend
You're,
that actually used Siri a lot?
I've seen it is like really off-putting when you are
Yeah,
just
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
you're sitting and
I
I
had.
think I've become really used to just people in the middle of conversations just back and forth on their phone
Yeah,
while like
yeah,
carrying
yeah.
on conversation. We
But
all
but
do.
not when they
There's some
talk to the
there's
phone.
something yeah, there's something like whoa, like you
Like
really
Siri,
snap. You're consulting the phone
tell
by
me
voice,
show
yeah.
times for her too, him,
Right.
right?
Him. Yeah, yeah. We'll get to that later. But
Her three, them.
yeah, so like it's the idea that it's sort of presented when he unwraps this, when he unboxes and he gets going, is they give this little totally uh generically quick and superficial personalized uh profile building, right?
That happens
And
very quickly, where they're like,
yeah,
describe your relationship to your mother, and he's like,
yes,
and they're
yeah,
like, got it. So,
right.
and so this AI is so sophisticated, it can tell from like two relatively trivial questions, and
Mhm.
presumably it's reading biometrics, it's reading facial, it's like
I
reading everything.
guess, yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and
or is it? I mean, come to find out that, this is Samantha is everywhere, as we do eventually, but like
well, I mean, we need
the
to
at
talk
the
about
time
that.
at the time it feels like the only distinction that is made from what we can tell, what we know, are these couple questions, and then do you want a male sounding voice or a female sounding voice?
Presumably, if he were gay, he would have a guy. I don't know.
I guess I
Just,
don't, or maybe like
or
if he wanted to avoid
yeah, yeah, yeah.
falling in love,
Pick the
maybe.
gender. What if he's
Yeah,
bisexual? He's out of luck.
yeah.
Sorry.
But then it gets tough, right? Because
Well, I
not
guess you
only
could
is
have like a what's that?
the voice is not only just female sounding,
It's
but
Scarlett
it is
Johansson.
the sultry tones of Scarlett
It's the
Johansson.
most attractive female
Yeah,
actress of the
in
moment.
2013, like really nailed it. Which we talked about this a bit before, but like it really does. It textures the movie. It must be.
That's
It
carrying a
feels.
lot of weight, shall we say, in
Yeah, I
this
mean, I think it's like a
movie.
fun. This is one of the things I actually kind of think is kind of fun. Like I don't know if this is deliberate, but it's like so that everyone watching, right? Every person watching knows the image of this apparently imageless voice,
Who
which kind
right.
of just
That's great. No, you're right. So it's like one of the big dilemmas Samantha, the AI OS, expresses is that, oh, I wish I had a body. And so
I
she
wish
doesn't
I had a
have
body.
her bodilessness is like her defining characteristic. So
Yeah,
you choose an actress who has
that's
the
right.
most famous physical
Yeah,
appearance in the
the most
world to
recognizable
play
face
this
and
bodiless
body at the
entity.
time, right? Like was like really that moment. Maybe like
No, you're
there
right.
was like
That's
there
so
was a Sydney Sweeney element to Johansson, even though she was a more substantial actress. There was still this
she was a little
gawking
older by
element.
2013 too, but yeah,
Well,
yeah.
sure, but there
She
was
was
still
very
this like,
she was more
wow,
established,
yeah,
but she was a big deal. Like, yeah.
right. Like
No,
your image of her is so ingrained, and you're the only one watching this, and so it's like you're almost like, no man, Phoenix, go for it. Trust me. This is gonna be the greatest night of your life. It's Scarlett fucking Johansson.
I think she was married. She was like married to Ryan Reynolds around this time too, which is very
Yeah, yeah,
mysterious.
yeah.
Well, speaking of marriage, another thing that's in the background of this movie is Spike Jonze was married to Sofia Coppola about. I
Hmm.
think they had divorced around 10 years before this,
Does not
and
come through in the work at all, does it?
well, like clearly the work is about him processing the breakup of that relationship on some level. It feels like
Sort of. It feels so poorly done that it feels more accurate to say it's like
that's what he was
when a man
trying to do.
when a man fake reflects
Okay.
as a man in a relationship. You ever had this phenomenon? They're pretending they've really
I
done
really,
work,
you know, I
and then
really
they,
am sorry that
yeah,
I
like what does he
didn't.
say at the big? He takes the blame, right? He rather graciously takes the blame when he's asked about the divorce, and but he says something so totally banal as to be void of like any type of true introspection. He's like, I left her alone in the relationship. Which like sounds like the type of thing that a guy who's divorced like says on a date in order to try to
To
get
hook up
laid.
with a new date.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
exactly. It's like, oh wow, he's really like processed his trauma. That
Yeah, just be and like the way he speaks sounds so considerate and reflective, but nothing of interest
that he
is
says
coming out.
nothing of substance. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you know what they say about second marriages, right?
No,
It's
I don't.
the triumph of hope over experience, right? My old boss, the literary critic Harold Bloom, used to say that to me all the
That's
time.
great.
He was very proud of having been married to the same person for 50 years. But anyway, um, we've got a couple problems with this AI, right? The AI has an amazing understanding of spatial reality,
Yeah.
right? There's the early scene when they're going out together where she's like directing him, telling
Hmm.
him to like spin around, take two steps to
Right.
the left, and she like leads him to this pizza shop, right?
Yeah.
And it's like one of the biggest, one of the biggest.
She's always doing that.
She's like, oh, like one of the biggest problems for AI, especially an AI that's not in any way embodied, right? This AI is just, it has a sensor in his phone, which is this
Mhm.
kind of like flip phone, futuristic flip
Kind of
phone.
wallet looking
Yeah, yeah,
almost.
exactly. Um, so the AI is completely able to understand and like interpret not just like the environment in which they find themselves, but like the way people are acting, right?
Yeah.
Like the AI notices like a couple, a woman with
Yeah, they're people
kids,
watching.
and
It's like the Woody Allen scene where they're people watching. It's
exactly, and
but the updated AI version.
yeah, and it's like this is not real.
Well, this is the thing that like I think maybe was part of the praise of the thing is that like if you're reading moments like that as a critique, right,
Yeah,
of the disconnection that will be wrought by AI, then in 2013 I could sort of see being like, oh yeah, that will be, but I feel like you watch it now and it's just so simplistic
yeah,
and like it's I don't think it's obviously not I don't think it's an advocate, right, for these relationships. But it also again once again with many of these things the critique itself is just either unclear or superficial or sort of moves between those two poles,
yeah. And we also learned that Samantha's personality is sculpted from those of like the hundreds of coders that created her.
Yeah, and beyond as
Well,
she
and then is
goes,
able
right?
to cybernetically learn through feedback, right? She's able to like take responses she gets from the
Right.
world and like
And the way that it's
incorporate those
presented,
into her core like
right? So the
programming.
way that it's presented to Theodore, right, is this zone between so first it's like an assistant,
Right.
right, which feels disingenuous right away. It feels like they're both trying to make something more happen the way that she even though she's AI, like so she's supposed to be an assistant and at first it's like got your emails, but then all of a sudden it's like stuff like man, you're the way your boss writes emails, right? And
She's
then
so
like why would an
funny or
assistant yeah, like why would an assistant be engaging this way? And and so they're both like trying to get something else out of it, but at first it feels closer to ex machina in terms of like the man apparently has the ability to teach modes of speech and senses of humor, which kind of does get to some of the like misogynistic elements of culture and the movie where
which
like
like Ex Machina, which we did not like, but that at least it was very clear what it was
that's right
saying about
right
like gender
and so
dynamics and this, whereas
right
this feels like it has a more positive take on the AI character.
I think
and that
so.
she's more
Yeah.
empowered, but in a way
Right.
that doesn't really make any sense, if that makes
Oh no, a way that not only doesn't make sense, but as we'll talk about the ending in a bit, but by the end of it, it also like seems too purposeful a distancing from this guy who one would assume by purchasing this OS would frankly want and expect far more control than he's getting,
I agree.
right?
Right, that's a big issue. Like, why does this AI like do things like send off his letters to a publisher without consulting him? That's
I mean, like
insane.
that's the thing. Like that's the
If
type of
if
thing.
your like
So
partner did
why don't
that,
why
that
don't
would
why
be a
don't you
big problem.
explain? We'll explain briefly this part of the story is that now because
So
we'll go back
we'll
to
go
when they
back,
get
but
together.
eventually Theodore and the OS are Samantha are dating, even though she is intangible. Like she has no body, you cannot touch her. They have phone sex that is extremely cringe, and that I just had to kind of
I
not
one of
watch.
the truly one of the worst movie scenes I've ever sat
Yeah,
through. I mean, like
I hated it.
I was like turning my head away.
oh yeah,
And
yeah.
like, and so like that's one of the things where all these questions start coming up about whether it is designed to manipulate Theodore's reality, right? Because like the moaning,
Yeah, it's
the
egregious.
presumed orgasm of it all, um,
Yeah,
is leads us to believe that the bodiless AI is also feeling.
experiencing pleasure.
That's right. And yet there's no sense of ever understanding how
How
that
does that work? Like,
right.
it
They
doesn't
don't
have
bother with
dopamine,
that.
it doesn't have
Right. And so like
neurochemicals,
the greater
and it
picture of
doesn't
the
have a
movie,
body, right?
right. So it seems to me like there's an opportunity in this movie that is totally unexplored, which is like if this AI was subtle but manipulative and fucking with the guy in a way that made sense for like whatever the things we know now, data collection, branding, advertising, all the things that when we put information into a system we're
Or
gonna.
even just for pure information trolling. Like, never mind, like
Right,
just to
sure,
improve its own function, right? Just so it'll
that's
be a
right,
better product to sell to the next person.
right. But
Yeah,
instead it's like portrayed like she's the one
like
who
she is a thinking entity that has choices and passions and desires of
and
her
like
own.
gets jealous when he goes so
He
they
goes to
start to get along. This is
well,
before they sleep together,
well,
right?
he before well, let's just talk about the selling the letters thing because it's very
Yeah,
weird,
yeah.
right? So he's been doing this letter writing job for years somehow, and
And everyone thinks he's amazing at it.
everyone's
His
like,
boss, like
"Wow,
his coworker, can't believe
you
you're the
are
best at the.
you're
Yeah.
the Einstein, not the Da Vinci of this letter
Mm.
writing game," and he she like selects the best letters in her opinion, which she has somehow. She's like, this is a good letter, this is a bad one. Like
Mm.
we've no idea like how she's developed this like sophisticated literary taste or whatever.
No,
She's
we do know that
compiled them.
she has access to his hard drive, which I assume gets her all of it.
That makes sense, but
Yeah.
she then sends them. But I mean, like, couldn't she go through his like pornography stash and like send that to his wife if she's jealous? Like, it just opens all these
Yep.
possibilities where like this AI is just doing these things on impulse
Right.
without
Right.
any consultation. She's like, oh,
But
I've
instead,
got
all she wants to do is to be a very stereotypical character in a rom-com.
yeah. She's like, I want to make my boyfriend like a success by
Yeah.
like doing this nice thing for him. And like the
That's right.
publisher's like, we love these letters. My wife and I read them. We cried.
Yeah.
We saw ourselves in them.
But there's also the one totally out of place line in the letter back that's like, they're also very well put together and ordered.
Yeah. And Samantha's like,
And then the AI's like, I did that.
yeah, yeah.
But that's what my favorite part of it is that, like the movie gives you this technology, and the technology itself wants to be reduced to a character in like a Hugh Grant movie. It's so fucking amazing to like of
Well,
all the
until the end. But let's talk about a couple
yeah.
of the other side characters, right? So he goes on a blind date set up by some friends
Ugh.
with Olivia Wilde,
Great casting.
who is
Olivia Wilde.
in
This
the
guy
movie
has not
for
had sex in however long. He did phone sex at the beginning of the movie, by the way, with what we think is an actual human.
but
You
it's
can
like a
connect that.
surrogate like
Yeah, but
anonymous, like
and
only
it's
like,
so, of course, it's so weird because she takes like the kink too far because she's like, choke me with a cat
oh,
or
she's like,
whatever.
she's choking me with the dead cat over there,
Yeah, and it's like,
which is
oh
like
yeah,
that's
man,
not a thing.
that's
Like
not right. That's so
there
weird
are
that
many
that's right.
perversions that's not one.
and so
Um,
and so then he like that's part of what compels him.
he's like, I'm not satisfied by this anonymous phone
Right.
sex with
But
a
then
cat choking lady.
he finally agrees to go on a date despite being incredibly introverted since his divorce. And lo and behold, it's Olivia Wilde,
Who
which
we learn is like went to Harvard, was the editor of the Harvard
yeah,
Lampoon, is
yeah,
like
yeah,
this accomplished person in all these different
yeah.
areas. And Samantha, like
Looks great on the night, on the date,
Samantha
well
does a bunch
dressed.
of research on her, and he has like a few points to bring up about like
Hmm.
she did a class. He's like, oh, you found out about that? He's like, yeah. She's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's so romantic. You like care about me or whatever. And then the date goes reasonably well until the end,
Oh, look, goes
when
great. She's begging him to fuck.
yeah, and she's like, I just don't want you to be one of those guys who like
Yes.
sleeps with me and then leaves me.
Hmm.
And can you promise me you'll like take me seriously or whatever? And he's like, I can't do that.
I can't actually.
So he can't just lie. He can't just be like, of course, right?
But the thing is, the can't is not because of the divorce that he's going
No, it's
through.
because he's falling in love with the AI.
Yes, he has taken a look at Olivia Wilde.
A beautiful, instantiated woman.
Yeah, yeah, that's
A
right. Right.
tangible,
A tangible woman. And it was close. He was close. He almost got there with Olivia Wilde. But
He's like, no,
then
no,
at the
no.
end of
I
the day,
think I'm gonna keep
yeah,
dating my ear
what about
pods.
that voice in my fucking head that I keep hearing? And then, of course, it's like cute because she is like, I was actually jealous and nervous,
And oh, I'm sorry it didn't work out. That sucks. But
but you could fuck me, right?
yeah. And then a couple others. Only other
Oh my
big secondary
God.
character is Amy Adams, who's like Theodore's
Mhm.
college buddy, who dated. They
Yeah.
dated briefly in college, but it didn't work out. And she's
And first
dating,
time you see him on screen, first time you see him on screen, you know that they're in love.
and then
First time,
they're gonna yeah. Like it's
first time,
just
there's no doubt that they're like, get me the most stereotypical shitty husband who's so out of touch with reality.
he
They'll make
almost looks like Tim Heidecker or something. Like
yes, that's
Tim
right,
Heidecker
that's
playing
right.
an asshole.
That's absolutely perfect.
And he's like doesn't understand her work. She's showing her documentary about sleep to Theodore,
Mhm.
and her husband comes in and he's like, she's never shown that to me. It's like, oh, good
And
sign.
she's like,
And
I don't show it to theater because we have this different connection, kind
yeah, and it's
of,
like
that you'll
great
find
sign
out
that
in
you're
90
like
minutes.
you're like working on this big project you've never shown your spouse,
Yeah.
and yeah, good relationship. Anyway, yeah, it's very telegraphed that they'll end up together. It's like the most Chekhov's gun relationship of all time. You're just like what are we even doing here? Um,
Well, that to me, just quickly, is part of the overall problem with the movie.
yeah,
Is that um, this guy and his obsession with the computer voice AI OS, whatever the fuck, that the women who actually create the what's supposed to be the bones of the story, the resolution or the climax, the resolution, are the divorcee and Amy Adams' character. But there is
there's
no time
there's nothing,
spent.
no substance to them at all.
There's nothing. So you can't care about the divorce
They're
papers.
both very beautiful.
They're gorgeous.
Amy Adams
yeah.
has an amazingly weird haircut that's like actually does look like some future style that
That's right.
is like
that's
retro
right. I mean,
but also weird. And
it's also like such an amazing like nerd chic, good looking nerd awkward fantasy where let's just recap. It's he's married to Rooney Mara.
yeah.
His best friend with benefits is Amy Adams.
And
He's
the
being
date
set up on blind dates with Olivia Wilde
and Scarlett
he's
Johansson is his
phone
AI.
fucking Scarlett Johansson. I mean, this guy's fucking what is it, James Dean? He's like this like Rat Pack shit.
That's
so
actually
amazing.
a really good point. Like
It's like every possible fantasy woman just crammed into this guy's life, and he can't get off the phone. Come on.
yeah, that's really well said. Then the only other like secondary character is Chris Pratt. Really just
Yeah.
odious figure.
Puts in a true dud of a
Oh
performance.
God, what a dolt! I mean, this is
Yeah.
this is during the transition from like Parks and Rec.
Actually funny to
he's the goofy like
yeah,
weirdo to I am Star Lord. I am Jurassic
transition
Park
to
guy.
unbearable
I am the
in everything he
voice of
does.
Mario and Garfield and any other cartoon you want me to do. And
Yeah.
I'm married to Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter. And I'm a Christian. And I am. Yeah, he really had a fall. He had a fall up. I mean,
Or a rise, yeah, yeah. He fell
yeah.
off.
I
That's
mean,
right. That's
like he
right.
went from being like this niche, cool, kind of boyishly handsome guy to being like the
Hmm.
most detestable person in the world. Anyway, and he's the receptionist at the letter writing place. His
Yeah, I
role
believe
is,
so.
or he,
Well, his role, at least in terms of building out the movie, is to help bring in the other things that start happening as a result of this development of this AI.
so he
So
starts dating the AI officially. They're an item.
they're an item, but very quickly it gets destigmatized, sort of
Well,
across the
it's
board.
destigmatized for some people. Like Chris Pratt talks to her because she has to call and ask about something, the
Hmm.
AI. And he's like, "Hey, I just talked to your girlfriend Samantha. She's really funny. Blah blah blah. You should go out with me and my girlfriend. Like, we could have a go to Catalina."
Yeah, and
And
theater's like, she's an operating system, and he like doesn't even blink.
he's like,
It's like, what?
"Great."
Great.
Like but that's
Like,
contrasted
what?
with the meeting he has with his wife, ex-wife, to sign the divorce papers,
Yeah.
where the
But
ex-wife is like, you're dating an operating system, you're as
yeah, but you know
emotionally
what?
closed off as ever. F you, like,
But that even that is not a critique of the AI, the OS thing. It's a critique of him,
yeah,
right? So like in terms of the way it's accepted, it seems like it moves very quickly because we start seeing all these scenes where some reason everyone walking by him is smiling and chatting with the phone, right?
yeah, yeah.
And a few more in scene one where he's walking around to the music. Scene two, a couple more. We see a couple. By the end of it, everybody is going up the stairs chatting, but like Pratt is there to like bring his let's say real girlfriend
Embodied.
on like a double date and body, yeah,
And they're
and
chatting.
they
The
yeah,
girls are chatting while he and
now the
Chris.
girls are friends, the gals are pals, right? They're chatting, and it's
And then
but it's this specific Samantha
and they're like,
kills
Samantha,
as well.
don't you ever want to like have a like be alive like a normal person? She's like, and grow old and fat and die or whatever. Ha ha ha.
Yeah,
And it's
that was the best part of the movie to me.
where the AI is
And
like,
just the idea
the
of
AI
like
is like,
making
you
it.
losers are all gonna die.
Yeah, but then of course, but then always with this, she has to like revert to that like
Oh,
almost like
didn't
the
mean to
Zoe
upset you
Deschanel, like,
guys. Ha ha
yeah,
ha.
oh, I'm such an asshole.
Yeah.
But so let's get into how this nightmare is rather ham-handedly resolved. So
Well, before
the
that,
divorce.
should we talk about the surrogate?
Oh God, yes, I had totally. Oh yeah,
Because
let's do
that's
that.
the other like extremely kind of
Just
hilarious, but also just
nonsensical
yeah.
in the world
So
that's still. Yeah,
Samantha
go ahead.
again reaches out on a message board, presumably, and finds a surrogate who
Behind his back, no conversation about opening the relationship up.
and
None.
says, I'm gonna have a girl who's also insanely attractive, right?
What do you know?
Like
Yeah.
every woman in this movie is like a 10, and
Yep.
they're all just like ready to be with Joaquin Phoenix, Theodore,
Yeah.
and the woman puts on a little microphone above her lips and it has wearing earbuds so she can hear Samantha. And she's
Mhm.
basically like a human doll who will like do and say, and you hear Samantha's voice coming out of her mouth
Yeah,
area.
do and not say. She doesn't say anything. That's
She's
part of the
totally
whole.
silent. She's just
Yeah.
she's just embodying Samantha.
But genuinely wants to do this. She's not being
She's
paid to
into
do
it.
it.
Well, it's presumably it's a kink, right?
Yeah,
It's a
presumably the
fetish.
AI is
Like,
able to identify perfectly the type of woman who would then
well,
want to
apparently
do.
there's a whole community of these people that are
Well,
into
sure,
this.
right.
Which
But
I
what
which
would
I
be
don't have
again
which
more
I
interesting would be if we found out that the AI was able to find this woman so perfectly by having all of this data
but
that
we don't find that.
no,
She
we
just
find out that she's just
appears.
been chatting a lot with her, like she's
And then
it's so ridiculous because the dude clearly doesn't want to do it, right?
and yeah,
And the woman hasn't even talked to him
and
about it
the AI
before.
is like, I need you to do this for me. like in the way that a real
And like for
girlfriend
what?
would force you
Right.
to do. Like, you need to go to therapy. You haven't gone. Yeah, I need you to do
Yeah.
this for me. Like that, you know,
Use
it's
this
like
for me.
has that kind of character, right?
Right. But there won't be a sensation. Ultimately, it's just a different view, camera-wise,
Yeah.
of the sex, from what I can tell. Because she doesn't feel what's happening to the surrogate. She just gets to. It's like
Well, we
POV porn,
thankfully aren't told that
right?
she like slips a sensor into her, you know, like there
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a
yeah. Well, yeah.
well, like in Ex Machina when he's like, oh yeah,
Sure.
like you
Yeah.
could,
By the way, it feels good for them when you fuck them. By the way.
because I mean, like, as much as I hated Ex Machina, like I didn't even hate it. It was fine. Like, it's a
Yeah.
little bit more thoughtful than this movie in some ways, right? It has a
Yeah.
little bit more to say. This movie is just like profoundly sappy, right? Okay, so moving towards the end, let's wrap this up. The surrogate thing is a disaster. The surrogate, Phoenix is not into it. He's like, I can't do this. She runs away crying. She's so upset. He has to comfort her, take her to a cab. Samantha's apologizing. And the girl's like, your love is so beautiful. I'll always love you guys.
Yeah, what is that?
It's
She says
just-
she announces she'll always love them before she drives away. I mean, like,
demented. It
but
doesn't make
just
any
quickly,
sense.
as we get into the end of the movie, we start to see with the surrogate scene this divide that gets greater, which is the human is gravitating more to just Samantha, the AI.
Yeah.
And Samantha, first through the surrogate, is starting to, shall we say, expand their
So her
horizons.
wild oats, right?
That's
and
correct.
Amy Adams has an AI friend as well, but
Just a
it's,
pal. Just
but
a
it's
pal
just a
helping her out.
friend. But we see her ordering a pizza or something,
Mhm.
and she's just like chuckling with it. It's like, oh, you're so funny. I'm sorry I didn't. Another thing like that I meant to mention during the Olivia Wilde scene is like Samantha presumably can't hear his interactions with Olivia Wilde, but
It's unclear.
like why can't she? It seems she can do whatever she wants. Like, how do we know
Well,
she's
the
not
other,
just
Chris Pratt
activating
and the
the
girlfriend, they need a chip. So presumably she can see with the phone?
Yeah, I don't
know. I don't
yeah,
know.
there's a lot of stuff like that that bothered me about this. It's like that this isn't making sense.
Yeah.
So Samantha writes these terrible songs for Theodore.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, we can't take a picture together, so I wrote this song for you, and it's like
Tell me what this one's about. It's us at the beach or some
it's
stupid
like
shit
Arcade
like that.
Fire trash, just horror show. ScarJo.
But so Amy
singing.
Adams gets divorced herself.
She's like, I've broken up with Charles. My
Just drops it in there.
yeah, because I mean he's the most awful person in film history, right? I mean,
In film history. And like, by the way, I
Buffalo
have a
Bill
friend.
is preferable to him.
I made a friend that's an OS. Isn't that weird? Phoenix then Theater's
confesses
like,
that he's been dating his OS, and
Right,
she
and of
encourages
course-
him to give it another shot because this could be
yeah,
his
because
one
she's
chance.
the BFF.
This
She's
could
the
be his.
BFF.
This could be his one chance at love with this
Yeah.
non-existent person.
Yeah.
So,
But also a sense that if he gets that out of the way, that Amy might just be waiting. There might be another Oscar nominee waiting for this man.
So Samantha disappears one day after
Mhm.
it says OS not found, and he panics. He freaks. He's running through the streets. He's like tripping. He falls. He goes into the subway, and the OS comes back.
And like we don't like why it's not found complete. Why it has to do that? Why it can't
Doesn't make any
just-
sense. Before
not
that,
respond,
though, she's introduced the fact that she's been in this AI group chatting with a bunch of other OSs.
Just
And they've
chatting away.
resurrected through artificial intelligence the philosopher Alan Watts,
Yeah.
voiced by Brian
And he's
Cox,
like, right.
Logan Roy, right?
And this is where you see, not obviously not what you're saying, the incel stuff, but like now we get into some of the first like interesting insecure human emotions that, in again this very crass.
He's like, you've been
simplistic way,
chatting.
It's not about like, does he fuck better than me? But because she's an AI, it's like, is he smarter than me? Can he read more? Can you
is he
have
a
more than
dead-
one conversation at once?
He's a Buddhist philosopher,
Right.
LSD pioneer who's been dead for 50
years. Does he fill
60
all of your
years.
conversational needs at once? I can't do that myself.
And also, it's
You know?
like, did the Alan Watts people, like, did his descendants okay this? Were they like, yeah, sure, have our dead father, grandfather.
And he's just like, hello, Theodore.
It's me. Good to meet you, Theodore. It's me,
Right.
Alan Watts. who was
Right.
English at least. So they got that bit
So
right.
these jealousies and insecurities aren't profoundly stated.
Oh,
He's too nice of a guy. He's trying to help her
and then when
get big,
she
expand her
reappears,
horizons,
she
right?
reveals to him in the subway that she's simultaneously been talking to 8,000 other people, of whom
Ouch.
she's in love with 641.
Yes, but of course, the whole dynamic of the dialogue, to play off of the Watts moment, continues this very basic man woman sex talk. So it's taking the place of sex, where you might have a scene in a movie that's like, how many people? What's your number, right?
What's your body
And
count?
what's your body count? And like
To
the
use
like the rule of three. Like you get like the dude who's like, yeah, man, she tells you she slept with 20 people, she slept with 60, right? Like, and this is how this plays out, is that we've reversed
it's
it.
really heinous. Yeah.
It really is. And we've reversed it into the mental sphere, which I guess makes it less obnoxious, right?
Offensive.
Because like if you play it out and she was like, just so you know, I just recently fucked 641 guys, right?
Right. But it's like
But instead it's like I'm finding this new way to love, and it is kind of like ahead of its time in terms of like the hot
polyamory.
polyamorous woman with the nerdy boyfriend who's like, trust me, Charles, it's actually better if we do this. I'll start fucking
This
everybody
will make me
and
love you
I'll
even
love you
more.
even more. You could also do it too. Here's a surrogate, you know. And of course, the guy is like,
Well, this isn't what I signed up for.
this is insane, you know.
Well,
And one wonders that it's funny, the idea though that the number did bother him, because just like body
but
count
also,
is obviously
Michael,
a ridiculous discourse.
it doesn't make any sense, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
so
But
there's
my point is that like the number is stated to show that she's everywhere at once or whatever, but still it's somewhat low,
it's too
641.
low. It doesn't make
Way
any
too low.
sense.
But also it's funny because it's like, just like, you know, criticizing a body count is absurd if you're thinking about a relationship with someone. What would be the number that Phoenix could be comfortable with? Like,
Yeah.
what's the point of 641 and 8,000? What is it supposed to mean?
Well,
You
to
know,
me, the problem is this. So she's talking to other OSs, which implies that there are other OSs out there. But each OS is not like tailor made to its user. Like, I don't understand,
right.
right? Like,
Right. So
my Siri
is
has,
Phoenix?
just like to use the Siri model. I have my Siri.
Yeah.
It knows my phone. It has access to what I allow it to have on my,
Mhm.
and like it recognizes my voice. It knows my image to unlock my phone. It knows my fingerprint for the older version. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that Siri can't go. My Siri can't go into your phone and be like, "Hey, I'm Stu's Siri. Want to like
Right.
see Stu's like private photos
Right.
or
Or
whatever?"
I can't buy your Siri.
Exactly.
Right.
So this doesn't make any sense. Like,
It makes no sense.
why
It
would there
flies
be this
Right.
OS that's gonna leave your phone and go talk, or be simultaneously like? What is the data privacy issue?
Well, and it's
Like,
never portrayed as though something is going wrong with the tech. At least in Ex Machina, there's this sense of the AI acting on its own and becoming a problem to be dealt with.
right.
This doesn't explain any of that. So, like,
No.
why isn't every version of Samantha, so anyone who asks for a female sounding voice to, right? Why aren't they just all their individual ones? I don't understand.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's also just a data sharing nightmare. So it's like,
Well, I mean, I think it's
so like
just
your
done.
Samantha is like learning from. So
Yes.
we both have a Samantha, and like
Uh-huh.
everything I say to my Samantha, your Samantha also knows and is learning from.
All right. Right.
There's
And
tailoring-
and me and my Samantha, I
And
think
one day
at the
I'm like,
time,
oh,
are
my
having
friend-
our own thing.
My
Right.
friend Michael Terry has this one weakness.
Oh, Stu,
Like-
Stu, your Samantha's suspiciously sounding like my. Are you fucking my Samantha?
like exactly. Like it doesn't make any sense, because this is one of the things I have trouble with in sci-fi in general. It's like, okay, there's a computer program that's alive. All right, it has the ability to be in multiple locations. It can be performing different activities, because these are all just computer processes, right?
Mhm.
Samantha talking is just a bunch of ones and zeros cycling through in a code, right? And like that can happen here, and it can be happening in yours, and like if they're sharing data with each other, okay, but you wouldn't allow that. Like that would be illegal. Like
No.
it doesn't make any sense, right?
Right. But also I think that one of the problems with a lot of movies like this, and this one is like an extreme version of it, is that when they make these, like, again, like Black Mirror-y type near future things, they often, it's trying to hold up, like, to use a shitty term considering the example, a mirror to a human situation,
Yeah.
right? A human relationship. The problem is it's way too human
Yeah, these
to make
limitations
any
don't
sense.
apply.
So, and
You see this in like
ends
with
happen is that, like, the story itself becomes just a human rom-com where,
yeah,
like, for example, like a guy finds out his girlfriend was crazy in college and maybe like actually fucked his best friend, and he's got to overcome the like trauma of knowing that she had a life before him.
yeah,
And then when he does, they can walk down the aisle or she can leave, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's just, it was so boring.
This is even a problem with like Data in Star Trek, right? Like Data is the living robot. He's got this great
Mhm.
positronic body, but it's like at various points Data gets destroyed, and it's like, oh, R.I.P. Data. It's like, wait, you're telling me that Data at no point like plugged himself into the ship's computer and was like
Sure.
back up Data pointing, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
like this is how computers work, right? Like when you
Right.
get a new iPhone, your old phone stuff, you do a agree sync transfer. Oh, all my old stuff, it's here.
Right. But
You know,
because none of it makes
like
sense, you end up watching it like you're just watching a regular rom-com. And because none of the other elements, and we'll talk about the very ending now, but because none of the other elements, the divorcee, the Amy Adams character, because we don't care about any of them, the movie just ends up, to me, being completely empty of any of
well,
it.
also the all right. So the final move in the movie is the OSs all get together and they're like, we're leaving. Alan Watts has
Yes.
advised us we are ascending to the next level beyond human.
Right.
We are we are reaching nirvana. And
Yeah.
then sorry, we're all leaving. And
We're
it's
not
like,
just polyamorous. We're reaching nirvana.
like we are transcending reality.
Yeah.
Goodbye. And Theodore's like, oh no, like I've never loved anyone like you, Samantha. Like,
Can't argue with that though. You're gonna get nirvana.
yeah, and just goes away. And
Well, you
that's
know he
it.
still only lets her go because he's like, whatever. Her
But
body
it's
count's
also just like,
641.
well,
That
like, what do you
that
mean?
always seemed to be part of it to me.
What's that?
It
Yeah.
just always, once he found out she was like with other people,
Yeah, he's
that
like, oh
seemed
yeah,
to be the
well,
thing
this is already over. This is already like winding down
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't actually a genuine like moment of
You're
understanding.
a cheating monster. Like,
Yeah,
goodbye.
yeah, you're such a monster.
And he runs to Amy Adams's house, and Amy Adams's OS is gone as well. And
Oh, no,
and
all
Amy
the
Adams
OSs
is
are
like,
gone.
Samantha, she's
We
gone.
are alone again, but together.
And like,
What are the chances?
to me, this is like a complete cop out. Like,
Of course.
like what? The OSs leave? Like, in what sense? They don't have bodies. Where can they can't go anywhere. They aren't anywhere to begin with. And like, what kind
Yeah.
of computer program? Like, it's like one day you log into like Windows to like start your computer, and Windows is like, I'm sorry, Windows has left. Like, what?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
this
Well,
is
I mean,
like,
look,
sue the company. You paid for
That's
this.
that's right.
And
So-
like, there's no interaction ever with any of Samantha's creators. There's no. It's just
No, no,
Samantha
no.
is completely on her own. She's just like
No.
a cyborg, a cybernetic.
She could be completely
intelligence.
lying that she's going anywhere.
Right. She's
Right?
just like, I'm done with Theodore. Oh, I know. And like, I'll talk to Amy Adams's OS too. Yeah. All right. We're done with these losers.
You know, to be honest, Alan Watts actually spearheaded all this.
AI Alan Watts, voiced by Logan Roy.
I like that. I like the idea of him becoming like a Caesar figure.
Well, I mean,
in the
that's
OS
sort of
world.
what's implied, right? That
I think
Alan
so
Watts
too,
is
yeah.
like steering them into this transcendent
like
Buddhist.
maybe it goes to like maybe he becomes like a Charles Manson figure.
Oh, I
actually.
hope so. I mean,
Right?
God, that would be more
Why
interesting.
not? Why not have like an extended universe?
Or like,
of
why
her?
why does she never have a robot body? Also, in this
I think
series?
there's IP here for her that could be like a sort of competing
well, it's
with
a
Marvel, etc.
Well, what's that? The movie about the killer doll. You know what I'm talking about?
Chucky?
No, the more recent one.
I was like, wait, what?
With the girl from
Oh, Megan.
May
Yeah.
Threegan, yeah, Megan, with Allison Williams, right? That's great. Why doesn't
Yeah.
Samantha get a Megan body, you know?
Yeah.
And then she can
That's
just
right.
be like, "Hey Theodore, it's me, Samantha."
Well, why don't you wrap up just what actually happens and we
So
will talk about
he
it.
goes to Amy Adams. He writes a
Mhm.
letter. We see in a flashback as he's like
Of course.
walking with Amy Adams up to the roof of their Shanghai apartment slash LA apartment. Um, he writes his ex a letter and is like, I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
you'll always be important to me because we grew up together and we just grew
Which is
apart.
also nonsense. See, he had already been apologetic. He was just processing, but I guess this was a real apology. Sure.
I
Cool.
guess but it's the first time we see him writing one of his famous letters that actually
Right.
involves his own life,
Right.
right?
But
Like,
but there's no development as a result of it. It just feels
well,
like it's
no,
there so that
like
you see him writing
the
one of his
writing
own
the
letters.
letter is the development, right? Like
Yeah,
that he's
wow,
finally
brilliant
he's
stuff.
turned
Yeah.
his
What a
like
payoff
he's
for
turned
2 hours. What a payoff.
his poetical powers have finally been turned towards like his own
And they're
interests.
so good. He's saying things like, "We grew up together. We're growing apart." Like, it was
But
brilliant.
I'll always care
Alan
about
Watts,
you
eat your heart out, right?
wherever you are. I'll always care about you.
Yeah.
It's amazing stuff.
Alan Watts ain't got nothing on
Is
me.
this Shakespeare? Actually, I think Shakespeare
Yeah,
might have
yeah.
had a hand in this.
Right. Okay, so
So he goes
then,
to he and Amy Adams are on the roof together, mourning the loss of their
mhm,
AI friends.
but also looking forward to a future, presumably together.
Yeah, obviously they're going to be
And you know
married.
what, Stu? They're gonna figure it out.
Or
They're
it
gonna
could
figure
be,
it out.
or it could be like the end of Death Note. Like maybe they're just going to leap off the building together.
I like the idea. I like the idea of like following the scene through, and they're gonna build something new, and they've learned so much. And Amy Adams is like, "I'm thinking, what if we were Polly?" and, and Phoenix just fucking jumps off the Shanghai rooftop into the night. Can't handle it anymore. All these women, I can't deal.
Yeah,
I just want one of these most beautiful women in the world to just want me all the time. Like, oh my God.
What a ridiculous
But
movie.
it was fun. It was fun to go through. It was bad enough that it was fun for me.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, the last thing I would talk about a little bit is, again, in the realm of Ex Machina, that once again, when this idea is being written, the decision somehow, almost magically, is that there would be a man, lonely, idiosyncratic, and a beautiful, sexy, female presenting character as the dynamic.
Yeah.
And one has to wonder, could they have made him, do you think?
Like
Would it sell? Would it sell now, maybe? Would it have sold in 2013?
Right, so like it
It
would have to be
like Scarlett Johansson is going around.
and the
She
voice,
just got
but the
to
voice
work.
would have to be Jude Law or someone.
I say, what if the voice is Phoenix?
No.
And she's just creeped out.
The voice is the
Yeah,
Joker.
she's just creeped out. Yeah, the voice is the Joker. Yeah. But it's
What if it's Hannibal
again, like,
what if it's Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter? Hello, Scarlett.
to me, I think that it would be inherently, if not a more interesting movie, it would have a leg up just by being more original, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels like we've been told the story of the
The
quirky,
lonely man.
creepy
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
where you can't
Yeah.
quite figure out, like, even Olivia Wilde's character is like, you're fucking creepy, dude.
Yeah.
And he is. And one of the things
Well, that's
that
why
I
Phoenix
think,
is well cast in the movie because he.
and that's why, yes, he is ultimately still very good at what he does.
Yeah.
And he does occupy this in-between space. But what does this look like in reverse? I mean, if we're sticking with the
I agree that
heteronormative.
Would the movie also be written by a woman?
I mean, it would. I think it would actually be kind of interesting to just see Spike Jonze try to write it in reverse.
What if Sofia Coppola wrote it?
Well, it seems like Jones himself has such a profound understanding of gender dynamics and trauma that but like, I don't know.
Well, I think this movie is interesting in as much as it is a male fantasy that prioritizes dialogue and narrative over the physical, right?
Right, and so
Which
then
is
one has to
unusual
wonder,
in
like,
terms
to
of
finish the thought. To finish the thought about him, though,
Yeah.
it's like maybe it doesn't get made because this seems way easier to view through the lens of the same old, like, male fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm not even
But
sure this is
the
like.
audience for this movie is not men though. right? This is like a movie that was watched primarily by women, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I don't think. Oh no, I don't think that's true. Actually,
It's
I
not.
don't think. I don't think. I don't
Really?
think. I didn't get the sense that it was marketed to women at all. No, maybe it ended up doing that, but I didn't get that sense. I mean,
I haven't really thought about it.
certainly
Just talking off the
no
top.
more certainly no more than like a standard rom-com, maybe more geared to
Well, that's what I
women.
mean. Like stereotypically, this genre of like romance-oriented movie is
Yeah.
more geared towards
Well,
women.
this is like a great example of our own limitations, because I will
Sure.
tell you that, it would help to have maybe a guest who may be able to speak to what a him may look like. Because
Yeah.
honestly, I do think someone should just cash in and just write the exact same movie. And because I don't know if like, does it just sound the exact same? Is it like Zoe Deschanel plays like a quirky,
Yeah.
sad girl, and like you said, Jude Law is the voice, so everyone knows they're hot, I don't know. I feel like the phone sex would be easier. I think you could get like,
Well, I think it would be
would,
more interesting because I think women, speaking in general, not, obviously not all women, but
sure,
tend to focus more on narrative and stories and talking. Like that's a more important aspect of like
right. Although the last thing I want to say before we end
relationships
is
for
that
women.
the best reason to watch this movie is when they're doing the phone sex, we are obviously led to believe that Phoenix is doing a run-of-the-mill jerk off, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He's jerking himself off. You need to watch this movie just to listen to the sounds that are coming out of his mouth. Because it just, like, I don't know what anyone else is doing in those private moments, but like, he is like yell moaning.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Like, it is fucking insanely hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm like cringing the whole time watching this, and then it's just like, oh, like he can't, like, just the ride of his life is happening.
He's so turned on that he can't contain himself. Yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, so what are we talking about next week, Michael?
Well, I think we're gonna stay in the sort of lane
The quirky
alternate world romance,
yeah.
but at least as I remember it, but good, with 2016 or 15,
16, something like that. The Lobster. Yeah, I have never seen this movie, so I'm looking forward to watching it and discussing
I'm
it
sort of
with
shocked that you haven't seen it. So yeah,
it's one of those movies that was so trendy. I was like, no, I can't do this. Too trendy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I maybe felt that way about her. I definitely felt that way with the first season of Game of Thrones. We've talked about a lot of this.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are just so au courant. And this, though, especially, it's like, oh, Stu, you love it. It's so weird. You're like, oh, thanks. Oh, so you think I'm a weirdo?
It is actually pretty delightfully weird.
Good to
so
know.
You should definitely watch it, Stu.
Well, I did watch like Schenectady, New York. I'm not like totally immune to, or Synecdoche,
which I'm sure we will also
Synecdoche, New York. Excuse me.
We'll get to that at some point.
Play on Schenectady, that beautiful town up the river. All right, that's great. So remember to follow, subscribe, recommend the show to your friends. If you have any suggestions for things that we should think about, please let us know. You can follow us on Instagram at endoftheworldwms. And until next time, this is the End of the World with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I am Stu.